So we are on the Dhammanupassana, on the Noble Eightfold Path, and today will be, I'll still talk on the Sila, on the morality, morals, right speech, right action, right livelihood, from the Abhidhamma point of view. Now, if you have the Abhidhamma books, then it is page 88. Now, the Sila, the morality, is important, even though it is the precepts, it is not the meditation, it is the precepts, the 5 precepts that you are supposed to keep. Now, if the precepts is very gross, sense that meditator don't bother about the precepts, just want to meditate, then it arises in the form of hindrances if the precepts are not kept. Now, I have a story. Long time ago, there was this man, and he got a big house, a bungalow with land, and he got a big tree, a rambutan tree, at the side of his house, and it was a very good rambutan. It was big and sweet, but then it comes with a lot of red ants. When it is in season, there are a lot of big red ants, and the red ants come into his kitchen and all over his house. And he doesn't like it. Sometimes he got bitten. So he decided to chop down the rambutan tree. And after thinking it is so expensive to chop it down, most easy way is to burn it. So he poured some petrol on the tree and he set fire to it with a water hose in the hand, so that the fire would not get out of control. And he slowly hosed it, and the tree burnt. And so also the red ants that is on the tree. So that was it. And it was no problem at all. He has burned down the tree, and there was not many red ants left in the house. But after some time, he came for meditation. Came to one of my class, and the beginner's class, and he joined and he started to meditate. Now, after some time, after a year or two, when he meditated, he got very distracted by these thoughts that he killed the ants. There probably would be thousands of ants that he have killed. And so he developed this remorse in the mind. As he meditated, the remorse, the regrets arise in his mind, and he could not concentrate. And so in the interview, he asked me, what should I do? I do not know that it is wrong to kill the red ants. So he never thought about killing the red ants. He just set fire to it. And he's not a Buddhist, so he doesn't know about the precepts. So what to do about that? So I say, okay, it is done. So you should not have remorse. But when it arises in your meditation, you just send metta to the red ants. Just share your merits. May the red ants that I've killed, may they have a good rebirth. May they be well, peaceful, and happy. So every time the thoughts arose while you're meditating, you just radiate loving kindness and your merits. That through this meditation, with these merits, I share it to you, to all those ends that I've killed. So gradually, the remorse in the mind disappear, and he could meditate well. With regard to the 5 precepts, if the precepts are gross, and if one kills or steals or lie that cause a lot of problem or suffering to oneself or others, or even taking of drugs and liquor, the mind becomes so drowsy, he would not be able to meditate well, right? Or even sexual misconduct. So, therefore, the precepts are important, and they are the foundation. The purity of the physical action are the foundation of building up the purity of the mind. Kaya Visuddhi is the body, Chitta Visuddhi is the mind, and they are interdependent because the precepts are kept in the mind. Mentally we keep the precepts, and therefore we avoid the breaking of the physical precepts of not harming, killing, sexual misconduct, etc. Now the abstinence are the right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So these three are termed as the abstinence in the Noble Eightfold Path. After the right view and right thinking, then comes to these three parts. The viratis, abstinence, are three beautiful mental factors which are responsible for the deliberate abstinence from wrong conduct by way of speech, action, and livelihood. Livelihood. Now, the previous lesson I was talking about the livelihood. Monks have a long list of livelihood that they are not allowed to do. Even giving medicine to lay people, carrying messengers, healing people, and even touching children. They are not supposed to curry favor the children so that they would have supporters. A lot of things are considered wrong livelihood for monks. They are not supposed to do that. And they are not supposed to tell fortune, not supposed to sell the Buddha Rupa. A lot of things they are not supposed to do, because that comes under right livelihood. If they do that, then they have broken these precepts. They have broken not these precepts, but they have sort of the not following the purity of the precepts. But for lay people, they are more quite simple. You are not to deal with poison that kills beings. You are not supposed to deal with meat. Butcher, for example, you are not supposed to be a butcher, because that would be wrong livelihood. Harming, hurting other beings for your livelihood is wrong livelihood. But there are other things, for example, like if you ask me the question, what about salesmen? They do lie a lot. But again, some salesmen are quite truthful. They're not all liars. Don't say that all salesmen are liars. No, I'm a salesman myself once. So I don't lie a lot, sometimes little bit. We abstain. So we make sure we don't keep on lying all the time. We abstain. So sometimes little white lies. And there are a lot of right livelihood, doctors, teachers, and of course many others, nurses. They are very good type of livelihood. So not selling drugs and what's more, liquors and all that. Not supposed to sell drugs and liquors. Now there are three types of viratis, as written in the Abhidhamma books. Natural abstinence. Now what do you mean by natural abstinence? So it involves it is split up into three portions: social position, age, education. So in the Abhidhamma book, it is written as natural. That means he may not be a Buddhist, he does not take 5 precepts, he doesn't know about 5 precepts, but yet that person abstain. due to natural abstinence. Now, what is natural? Let's say for one's position, social position. For example, a doctor. So he doesn't, he do not kill the patient, right? He save. So he do not kill. So if a patient says that, hey doctor, I have incurable sickness, I have a lot of pain, could you just give me one injection and let me sleep and not wake up? Doctor cannot do that. They're not supposed to do that. To kill a patient. The code of a doctor is to save, not to kill. So that is the position. Or a Dhamma speaker is not supposed to lie. If he lie, what happened? Nobody believes him anymore. So when he speak, bolaku no longer people want to listen. So that is the position. Or even let's say a judge. A judge is not supposed to break the law. He has to keep the law himself. So these are natural abstinence. Natural. He abstains the 5 precepts because he is at a position that he feel that this is wrong. If I do that, it's below my dignity. So that is called natural. Now age. Now elderly person, they are supposed to behave themselves, right or not? They are supposed to be matured. They are not. They should not be seen drunkard, or they should not steal or having bad manners, like sexual misconduct, for example. So these are due to age. When a person has a certain age, he's supposed to be well behave. No longer a child, he must behave according to his age. So he should be, so that he could be respected. Now education, some are lucky. Some in countries where they are taught about the precepts when they entered standard 1. They're very lucky. They have all these teachings on the morals and so forth. And so by education, right, they learn from young age and middle age, and when they grow up, then it gets stuck in their mind that these things they should not do. Now, as a Buddhist, of course, we have education. We come to when you listen to Dhamma talks, they are always encouraged to abstain from breaking the 5 precepts, to practice the morals. So by abstinence, the cultivation of morals, keeping precepts such as 5, 8, 9, or 10, or 227, or even more. So by abstinence, we develop our morals by abstinence, right? By willingly abstain, Veramani, alright? So Buddhists are not forced, only we do that by knowledge, by understanding, which I have told you before that story, that by understanding that when we meditate, if we do not keep our precepts, it becomes a strong hindrance for our spiritual progress. So it is something like a vipaka, citta, resultant consciousness, aramana, objects. So when you have done something very bad, these mental objects keep arising in our mind. And these objects are known as vipaka. They are resultant objects. Just as externally we can understand very well when we see something unpleasant, when we get being scolded, sound, or we smell something very foul, bad smell. Now these are resultant objects. What you have done in the past, and these are resultant. And we get contact with these unpleasant objects. But if we get contact with these pleasant objects, then they are our wholesome resultants. If we see very pleasant things, if very nice food to eat, if we hear music, very nice music or songs or things like that, or even having pleasant thoughts, these are wholesome resultant objects. Now, if one breaks the precepts, it's considered as heavy karma, and it keeps on coming back. It returns to us or resultant because of that action by way of mind door. Right? We have by way of sense door, eye door, seeing sense, hearing sense, smelling sense, tasting sense, body sense. When you are sick, when you have fever, when you get certain type of disease in your body, they are the resultant karma experienced by way or through the body door. But there are also resultant karma directly through the mind door, meaning to say mind objects. And so it comes as resultant. When you meditate, then there arises these unpleasant mental objects. And it causes remorse, and therefore the meditator finds it difficult to meditate. So what do? You tell yourself, okay, I will keep my precept now. In the past, it may not be strong. I have not keep my precept in the past. But now, I will try to keep my precept now. I will keep my precepts. I will try to keep it pure. And I would not be remorseful. So you share merits. Whatever things you have done wrong, you try to forgive. Or people have wronged you, you forgive. If people have done something wrong to you, it is your bad karma resultant. So you forgive that person. And if you have a lot of remorse, you learn to forgive yourself. May I forgive myself. May I not be remorseful. May I not have enmity in my mind. May I not have strong ill will, anger and hatred. Because you're going to create more unwholesome karma that will prevent you from getting samadhi, concentration, when you meditate. It causes a lot of agitation and disturbances. And when you meditate, rising, falling, the mind keeps running away. The mind keeps getting into anger and hatred. So mental purity affects the physical purity, and on the other hand, physical purity. As you remember and abstain in your physical, in your precepts, then the mind becomes pure, more and more pure. So again, the abstinence firstly arises in your mind. And when you use effort to prevent your body from breaking the 5 precepts, it enhances and strengthens your mental purity. So that becomes citta visuddhi, purity of mind. Alright? So, precepts are important for us to develop to the higher mental purity. Now, when a person refrains from evil deeds without an opportunity for their performance arising, this is not a case of abstinence, but a case of moral conduct. So the Abhidhamma says that whenever you abstain, whenever you want to kill something and you say, oh no, I have precept, I'm not going to kill. You abstain from your physical action. Then there is this abstinence, which is wholesome mental state arising in your mind at that moment, whether it's right speech, right action, or right livelihood. But what if there is no chance for you to abstain? What if your house have no mosquito? So you have no chance to abstain from killing the mosquito. Or people don't agitate you. You have no chance to scold. But if you practice your precepts, you say, I'm a Buddhist. Every morning I chant my precepts. Evening I chant my precept. I recollect whether my precept is wrong or have I broken my precepts. Now in that way you establish your Sila. Your morals become strong. Even though the abstinence does not arise in your mind, because you have no chance to abstain, but you develop morals. Your moral Sila becomes strong. So that is what the Abhidhamma book says. So, the abstinence, natural abstinence, then the abstinence by undertaking of precepts, just what we are talking about, our abstinence, our purity of conduct, morals, by way of taking precepts, by abstinence. And the second levels of our Sila is by way of our Sila becomes strong now by way of the absorption or concentration. Yes, the second level of purity of physical conduct. Now once you develop your concentration to a deep level, your precept become pure. You become very mindful. You no longer kill. You no longer steal. Or not to say you no longer, you at that moment when your samadhi is strong, your concentration, your peacefulness of mind is strong, you do not break the precepts. Why? Because we break our precepts due to 3 reasons. Now what are the 3 reasons that we break the precepts? The roots of craving. When we crave for something we can't get, we break the precepts. We get angry, we shout and scream at people because we want something we can't get. Craving. So we steal if we are poor. Right? So we perform sexual misconduct if we have strong craving. Right? Now what if you have ill will? You harm and hurt people by way of killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, or even intoxicant. When you get very depressed, when you feel very sorrowful, you take drugs, you take drinks to drown your sorrow. But of course, that is only temporary. It has its side effect. And out of ignorance, we break our precepts. We think it is alright to do so. It is not wrong to do so. Because somebody hurt us, it was right, our right to hurt back or to protect ourselves. We need to kill that person. Now that is out of ignorance. We think it is our right to do so. But we have broken the precepts out of ignorance. Right? So when a meditator, the more he develops concentration and develops certain level of samadhi, his mind becomes pure because he does not break the body precept as well as the defilements of greed, hatred and delusion has no chance to enter the mind. Because the mind is very wholesome and it is strong. Therefore it continues. And unwholesome mind do not arise. And the third levels of the purity of precepts is done by eradication. The third level, eradication. What do you mean by eradication? By eradication of the roots. Now, if by way of makha, makha means the path. When we practice wisdom meditation, once we attain the makha, the path and the fruition, which is the first stage of sainthood, then the mind eradicates the wrong view of a permanent self or a permanent entity, I, me, mine. And when that wrong view is eradicated, then the precepts becomes very, very strong. Very, very strong. And therefore, the purity of precepts is attained by way of eradication. But one has first to start with abstinence. We need to abstain first before it goes to the second level, where we meditate and meditate and meditate, and our mind gets into concentration, and it becomes very strong, the purity of precepts by way of jhana, or strong concentration. And the third part of purity attained by way of eradication. So there are these three levels of the purity that we have to go through, right? Now then, the viratis, of course, the abstinence, consists of right speech, the deliberate abstinence from wrong speech, false speech, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous talk. So last session I talked about the frivolous talk. In other words, the talk that is not beneficial. Talk about king and queen and country, talk about food and dressing and perfume, talk about politics, talk about anything under the sky except the Dhamma. So what is right speech? So for monks it's very strict. Right speech means the Dhamma. They must only talk about the Dhamma, things that are beneficial. Just as the Buddha declared to the monks, O monks, I, the Buddha, only talks with reason, not without reason. Talk with that is beneficial, not without beneficial. The Buddha do not talk. Every word the Buddha utter, it is beneficial. If it's not beneficial, the Buddha would not speak. Then what would the Buddha do? Remain noble silence. So that's what the Buddha says. So the Buddha advised the monk that they should follow thus, the same way. But of course it is most difficult for lay people to do that. So we abstain the gross one, the cakamaya one. Well, don't cakap too much. After people say you become a braggart, talking nonsense. So it is hard for lay people because we need to interact. Monks feel it not so necessary to interact, to socialize. But for lay people, there's a need to socialize, to interact with one another, to socialize. Only when you speak, we make friends. If you don't speak, people stay away from you. They think you are stuck up. Right? So mostly this one, frivolous talk, we try to abstain by not saying things that is harmful, that is hurtful. We can talk things under the sun, but make sure it doesn't really harm or really hurt people, right? Now then, what about right action? Right action is the deliberate abstinence from wrong bodily action, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. What is right livelihood? Right livelihood is the deliberate abstinence from dealing in poison, intoxicant, weapons, slaves, or animals for slaughter. So, the three viratis have the respective characteristics of non-transgression by bodily misconduct. Non-transgression, don't break the precepts, the abstinence. And now we go to the function. Now what is the function of viratis, abstinence? The function is to string from evil deeds. What is the function? To string, to abstain, to avoid from breaking the precepts. So that is the function of the viratis, the abstinence. And then what is the manifestation of the abstinence? The manifestation of the abstinence is having morals. People look at us, they are not afraid of us, they are not scared of us, they invite us into their house, they do not think we will steal their things. Once they know you have precepts, they do not fear you. Even leave you alone in their house, they do not fear you that you will steal their things. Why? Because the manifestation is morals. People think that you have morals by the way you behave, by the way you abstain from the 5 precepts. Then people do not fear you. So that becomes the manifestation. And what is the proximate cause of keeping precepts of morals? Now what is the approximate cause? So, says the Abhidhamma, the approximate causes are the qualities of faith. Now faith is very important. Faith, even though we say that faith is not strong enough just by faith, by belief. But belief is important in the wholesomeness. Even though we believe that if we do something wholesome, we will get wholesome resultant. Now that is having faith in wholesomeness. Even though you may not have faith in the Buddha, you may not have faith in God, you may not have faith in the Brahma or Devas, but you have faith in goodness. Some of them say, I have faith in humanity. Humanity means that I have faith that they are human in this world. People with kindness, with compassion. So he has faith in humanity. But again, it is a very sweeping statement. Humanity, and if he sees somebody who is not keeping precepts, who hurt and harm, then he loses his faith in humanity. So that is not a good one. You should have faith in wholesomeness. Right? In wholesomeness. That if I do wholesome action, it is good for myself. It is good for others. Now that is why this question was asked to the Buddha. Why must we believe what the Buddha says? The Buddha was talking about the precepts to the lay people, householder. They say that we are lay people, we are not monks, we have burdens, we have responsibility, and what must we do? And the Buddha says that, okay, if you're a householder, then you observe the precepts. And so some do not believe. Some say, why must I observe the precepts? Why? Then the Buddha gave the reason that you should have faith in wholesomeness. That if you keep the precepts, do you think it is good for yourself? The Buddha asked that person who do not believe. Now, if you abstain from killing, would that be good for you? If you abstain from stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, and intoxicant, would that be good for you? Then of course it is good. Because if you steal, you get caught, you are thrown in jail. If you get drunkard, you have bad reputation, right? If you kill, you get caught, then you're in big trouble. If you take drugs, you're in big trouble. Now, is it good for others? Yes, it is good for others. Because if you keep precepts, you don't harm them. You don't cause them pain. You don't disturb them. So therefore, even in this life itself, not to say about the future life, if you have faith in the 5 precepts, it is good for you in this life. You gain happiness, and in the future life too, you gain happiness, if there is a future life. Right? If you don't believe in the future life, but if there is, if you keep precepts, then it is good for you too. So the faith the faith in the Buddha, the faith in the Dhamma, the teaching of the Buddha, the faith in the Holy Sankhara, that by such type of practices, I too will become saints. Now, if you develop purity of starting from your precepts, purity in your mind, and you gain purity of views. When you gain purity of views, you become one among the saints. Even though you wear the shirt of a lay people, you are one of the Holy Sankhara. Even though you're a layman, even though you have a family, even though you earn your livelihood by way of being a teacher or salesman or whatever it is, but you are the Holy Sankhara. You are one of the pure beings. So that is the faith in yourself, that by such type of practices, having faith in this noble eightfold path, I will be one among the saints. Because the noble eightfold path leads to sainthood. As the Buddha says, all rivers reaches the ocean, and the noble eightfold path reaches Nibbana. Reaches, in other words, sainthood, leads to sainthood, to purity. First, second, third, and full-fledged Arahant, the fourth stage of Arahantship. So, that is by way of faith. One abstain, one practices the precepts. By way of shame, that if you don't keep precepts, the wise will censor you, people will blame you, people will criticize you, people will scold you. So by way of shame, you say that, okay, as a Buddhist, I should not do this. If I do this, it is shameful. Right? So by way of shame. So in other words, when we go out to the restaurant and with the Buddhist group, we refrain from killing. I've told you before, if you like to eat fish, then you have to ask, is the fish swimming or not swimming? Then the restaurant man will say, the fish is not swimming. Then okay, give me fish. If the fish is swimming, very sorry, I have to wait for it to stop swimming. Right? Only when it is dead, then you can eat. So you order the dead fish, not the live fish. There are fishes that are already dead. In the restaurant, there are fishes that are alive. So you order the dead one. So shame, fear of wrongdoing, fear of your karma, that if you break the precepts, you may get back unwholesome resultant. So these are wholesome mental states. Hiri otapa in Pali. Fear of shame, fear of resultant. Now once you develop these two mental states, when they become strong in your mind, your precepts are very strong. Whenever you do anything, there arises these two mental states. Must not do that. It is censored by the wise. People will blame me. And I could not escape from the bad consequences. One day, I will receive the resultant. Now, when these two mental states are developed in your mind, hiri ottappa cetasikas, they arises in the group of beautiful mental states. We call it, or wholesome. There is these 19 types of cetasikas that arises in group. Whenever there is wholesome, your mind is wholesome. And these two are among this group that arises when the mind is wholesome. But they can be developed. So once you develop one, like you have very strong faith, then it pulls up the wholesome mind. When you have strong faith, then arises the abstinence, the fear and dread of consequences. You just pull up one, develop one strong mental state. It pulls up the other beautiful mental states. Now that is, you become very skilled. Understand which mental states that you can develop, easy for you to develop and make it strong. Then it helps your mind to be wholesome, pulls up. And for example, your sati, mindfulness. Whenever you develop your mindfulness, rising, falling, and watch your mind and feeling, when it is strong, it pulls up wholesome mental state. Even in your dreams, you have beautiful dreams. Like I told you before, when I was a monk. And in my dreams, I was giving Dhamma talk. And when I wake up, I say, that is a fantastic talk. I never talked this talk before. Then I better take a paper and write down. But the problem is, when I reach and got my paper and pen, I've forgotten my dreams. Very fast, I don't know why. I don't know why. You remember your dreams and suddenly you take up paper and pen, everything gone. So fast. I wonder why we forget our dreams so fast. I wonder why. Do you do that too? Or do you still can remember very clear? Sometime only lah. You can still remember very clear. Especially when you are chased by a ghost. Wow, long time you can remember that. But a wholesome one, you forget so fast. And I say, oh, that's a pity. If I can remember my talk in my dream, I repeat that. Wow, fantastic. It is nice. It's a good talk. So, it even appears in dreams. So, if your sati is strong, your mindfulness is strong, when you dream, it pulls up all the beautiful mental states, the wholesome mind. And you dream of very nice dream. Dream you are in a beautiful garden. You dream you have you are with a big group of friends. You dream of very nice type of dreams. Alright? So, you develop and make one of these cetasika strong, mental states strong that are wholesome. It affects or it pulls up the other wholesome mental states. So as faith, for example, if you have strong faith in the Buddha, all the Dhamma, all the Sankhara, your precepts become strong. Your precepts become strong, right? And so, fewness of wishes. The last one. In other words, if you are contented, fewness of wishes. If you have developed contentment, and how does contentment arises? Due to samadhi. Only when you feel calm and peaceful, your mind becomes contented. So when you have few wishes, few desire, your precepts become strong. Few desire. You're not so greedy, so you don't have to kill in order to eat. So when one has few wishes, then the precepts becomes more strong. Contentment. When you have less greed, when you have less hatred, when you have less delusion. Right? So when we have more wisdom, then our precepts become stronger. When we understand why, when we have clear comprehension of why we must keep precepts, we ought to keep precepts, then our abstinence becomes strong. Okay? So, next week we will go to the meditation subject. Right what? Right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. So we'll go through one by one the three factors that comprise the right concentration. So concentration is important for us to attain realization. Some says that it is not necessary to meditate, to sit still for 1 hour. Not necessary. You just be mindful and you can gain enlightenment. Yes, if you don't sit, if your mindfulness is really strong, then you can attain. But if your mindfulness, general mindfulness is not strong, you could not attain, because if it's not strong, concentration cannot develop. Without concentration, there will be no insight. There will be no realization. So we'll cover the three one by one, slowly, more in detail in our next lesson. Alright? So any question with regard to this talk or your meditation?